the more religious a Jew you are, or more practicing a Muslim you are, or obviously engaged practicing Catholic as I am, the more likely you're going to see fertility as a gift, and you're going to want to maximize your progeny. You want to, kind of be fruitful and multiply more seriously. Is that the demarcation, the more faithfulness to the principles of what we call Abrahamic religions? That's correlated in some way with family size.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the iron law of demography you used to be basically that, and at a time when, for much of the past few centuries, I mean, the concern was high birth rates and overpopulation. And so what you saw was that women's education seemed to be correlated with lower birth rates. Now, that's true in the African continent. It's not true really for the developed world, for Asia, East Asia and the West. That doesn't make much difference anymore. What does make the difference in the developed countries is religiosity. And that's the strongest predictor of family size now. And I think increasingly so. So I think, and I was interested in that. And just what does this mean, right? I mean, if you have the average number of children per woman for people who say they have no religion, if that's around one, and people who are practicing religious of the Abrahamic faiths, if it's around two, then, obviously mathematically what we know in terms of population projections is fertility rate differences are the most important factor in the long run, in the period of centuries. In the short run, switching behavior is more important. If we're talking about 20 years from now, 30 years from now, but if we're talking about 100 years or 200 years, it's the birth rate differences that really are the key. So we have to start thinking about what the world is going to look like with these demographic dynamics. And that was the basis of my book, really.
Well, it turns out Malthus was wrong. The human ingenuity was not really accounted for in the way we produce food. We're not starving to death. You think of the Paul Ehrlich alarmist book, The Population Bomb, that came out the same year that Humanae Vitae did. He said that, I think the opening sentence for that book is, in 2000, millions now living will be dead, or something like that. Kind of hysteria about this explosion of population. It seems like if we keep having under two kids, and in many countries one, we're in demographic trouble, because you have to at least replace yourself and then accommodate for infant mortality. What countries do you see as in demographic, heading toward demographic nuclear winter? I'm thinking of places like Japan.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go around the world, the real fertility deserts would be, East Asia, like coastal China, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, probably Korea would be the worst, Taiwan, those sorts of places. Japan would be only slightly better. But then in Europe, you've got a lot of, the Germanic world has really low fertility. Eastern Europe, especially places like, the Czech Republic, the Baltic states, very low fertility. Southern Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, very low fertility. So, maybe formerly Catholic countries to some extent. And even the places that were at the upper end of the distribution, the Anglo-Saxon countries, including Ireland, the Nordic countries, a lot of them have gone down considerably in the last 10 years, actually. Now, and there's some speculation that this is ideological as well. Nordic countries have not been very religious for a long time, but perhaps left-wing ideology is playing a role in feminism, is playing a role perhaps in these societies, these very liberal societies that have had historically, Britain's fertility it's gone from around replacement to 1.55 in the span of about 10 years, very quick, and seems to be falling like a stone. So it's very hard to find, France is probably the best performing on these measures. It's like probably 1.8, 1.9. And that's pretty stable. But a lot of other European countries, and now go to North America, Canada, 1.25, 1.3, really very low. It's dropped a lot. U.S. has gone down. It's still much, still probably around, I don't know, 1.7 or something, maybe 1.6. But, which is not going to drop rapidly the way the Southern Europe is, but it's verging on something that might become a bit of a free fall. The point I make, though, in the book, Shall the Religious Inherit the Earth, is this is kind of a demographic or evolutionary bottleneck, right? So it's a bit like whoever has had the gene to survive the Black Death made it through that bottleneck, and everyone in the world today has that adaptation. So the question is, if we're going through one of these bottlenecks, who is going to be around? Right, will be the people who have the adaptation. Now, it could be that they're strongly religious. That's the adaptation. It could be they have some gene for liking children or liking large families. One or other of those adaptations, one way or the other, that's who's going to be around. Now, of course, we could have a cultural shift. It doesn't look like it, but it's possible. But other than that, I would say maybe we're heading into some kind of evolutionary bottleneck.